Now, human rights groups Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch say at least 33 people died in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, during a police crackdown on opposition supporters after the elections in August. The report issued Monday says a child and a pregnant woman were among those killed. Police used tear gas to disperse protesters who took to the streets of Nairobi, demanding a wide range of reforms before the October 26 presidential rerun. Protests erupted after President Uhuru Kenyatta was declared winner over opposition leader Raila Odinga in the vote. The Supreme Court later nullified the result. Last week, Odinga pulled out of the October 26 rerun. Kenyan authorities have banned protests in Nairobi's central business district in a bid to quell mounting political turmoil ahead of the repeat elections. Now, for more on Kenya's politics, I'm joined by James Ngundi, adjunct professor at Georgetown University and a native of Kenya. Mr. Ngundi, it's always a pleasure to have you on Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, Kenya is at a crossroad. And when you look at it politically, opposition leader Raila Odinga has said he is not going to sign the statutory Form 24A, which the IEBC requires of him to sign, so he can be officially off the ballot. Now, where does Mr. Odinga stand?
That's a tough question. I think a lot of people are asking the same question. I do not believe for one second that Raila failed to sign Form 24A out of ignorance. Any good politician will make sure that they always have a way out. They don't like boxing themselves in. So I think Raila understands, and his team of lawyers, that if they officially signed that 24A form, then for them to rejoin any election, if he were to decide to rejoin, he would be at the mercy of the authorities. Raila doesn't trust...
Does this mean the options are still open for him because he didn't sign this form?
I think so. I think he's leaving his options.
So we could have a surprise having, well, so far he's supposed to be on the ballot because he didn't sign it. But do you think he's officially going to say, hey, I'm on?
I think that's a possibility. I think he's leaving that open.
Now, that said, donors want him, Raila Odinga, on the ballot. But on the other hand, President Uhuru Kenyatta is telling foreigners, keep off Kenya's politics. What are Kenyans supposed to do, or how are they supposed to receive the rhetoric between these two leaders?
Well, I think when it comes to Kenyatta's statements to foreigners to keep off, we need to remember Kenya of the 1990s. That was the kind of rhetoric we heard from the former president, Daniel Arap Moi. Anytime you hear an African leader tell foreigners to keep off, it's because they are doing something that they don't want to be told not to do. So I think Uhuru does not want to be told certain things, and I think Kenyans should just take that as politics. It's the Kenyan politics. I don't think we are going to tell foreigners to keep off when there are clear violations of law going on, and especially in a country that is very quickly getting close to a precipice and to violence. So I think telling foreigners to keep off really is not realistic. These are the same foreigners who came to the aid of the country back in 2008 when we were burning it down.
You know, there is a question that Kenyans are asking often. When we had a political crisis in the country before, the clergy, you know, from all walks of, diverse religious groups in Kenya came together. They would put the leaders together, try to make some sense out of that and talk to them. What is lacking this time? Because I have not read anywhere where they really have done anything much to quell the crisis, really.
And that might be one of the saddest chapters in the political development of Kenya, particularly this time around. The lack of participation, the absence of the clergy and other neutral forces in the country, or at least forces that we used to assume were neutral and would bring the different political factions together. Kenya seems to be, we seem to have balkanized, we seem to have split in such deep ways that even the clergy seems to have lost way. And that's really sad. And I think down the road, this is something that we'll come to regret if the situation is not saved and the path that we are on right now reversed.
Now, we have seen demonstrations day in and day out against IEBC. Yeah. There is that political divide. You can almost read the ethnicity, you know, when you look at these demonstrations as well. But the question is, we're in on the impact of these demonstrations on Kenya's economy. Their way of life totally disrupted at this point.
Well, I mean, I think Kenyans, if we talk about Kenyans as the ordinary people on the street, I think their way of life has been disrupted for a very long time. I think the economy of the ordinary Kenyan has been disrupted for a very long time. So it's true that the demonstrations are costing the economy. It's true that the repeat election is going to cost the country billions of shillings. But what's the cost of truth, justice, and democracy? If at the end of the day, it's going to cost us billions, but have a credible election and a credible government, then I think it will be all worth it. I think what would be sad is if we went down this path, wasted all this money, still came up with an unfair and credible election result, and we found ourselves back where we started. In
a nutshell, what do you expect to see leading up to October 26, which is next week, Thursday?
I think the brinkmanship is going to be dragged on for a little bit longer. I quite honestly think if the international community does not put pressure on both Raila and Kenyatta to at least have a conversation, then the two egos, because these are two men with bloated egos, I think they will probably lead that country into chaos. But I do expect that a tremendous amount of pressure will be put on both of them, and I won't be surprised if before 26 the two of them have a conversation and agree on something.
As always, thank you for your insight.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
James Ngundi is adjunct professor at Georgetown University and a native of Kenya.